What's up, people? Sleepy Pernogo here, reminding you that today, on the publication date of this video, is Weekend War. So join our Discord community and play Cosmonarchy with us in team games, FFAs, wacky things, and more. That's it. Now, to the cast. Well, I hope you're not tired of seeing our boy Ayud64, our champion of Acropolis number 2, playing Cosmonarchy, because he's going up against Krankendau for part 3 of a series of games. Part 2 was casted on LAX Gaming's channel. If he's published it at the time of this video being published, I will have the link in the description for you guys to watch. Check that out, and just in case he hasn't gotten around to it by the time you see this video, I will leave the victor of that last match in mysterious doubt and obscurity. We'll just jump straight into Game 4. And I'll fill you guys in probably the final part of this, because I think there will be a 4-parter. I don't think we'll get through all of these matches in one game. But, you know, you never know. You never really know how long a game of Cosmonarchy is going to take. So let's introduce our players before we get too carried away. It's our Pumpkin Terran in the bottom left, Ayud64. And in the top right, it appears to be our Chestnut Zerg in the top right. Or is it? I'm going to say Chestnut. But it was Mahogany. And it is Krankendau, 1.5 in the top right. Now, this is a forward stockade from Ayud64. We have seen him play this strategy in TVT as well, I think. Or am I thinking of... I know Shambler likes to play the strategy TVZ. I feel like I've seen this build from Ayud on this map, and it is Catalyst, a map by Veek7. And the last time I saw Ayud on this map, I believe it was TVT against the Shambler. So that's where I'm picking that up, but that's actually not true because he played Steven against... Yeah, he played against Steven. I think he did the same build. So anyway, he likes his forward stockade is what I'm getting at. And he will waypoint a Hurakan into Krankendau's mineral line. We saw the amount of damage that did in Game 2 back in our first part on this channel a couple days ago. So definitely something that we see Krankendau going for that earlier pool timing. And I don't actually know if it'll be enough, you know, in time to stop this. He's gone Kagrant Pool Larvosk very fast in quick succession. And he will be sending a Worker Scout. He will intercept the Hurakan as a result, so he'll see that. Maybe put a little bit of damage onto it as well, make it easier for him back at home. Definitely something that we can watch out for here. As that Hurakan moves across, Krankendau is very quick to see the unit, but does not move to try to intercept it. To heckle it, slow it down, do damage or anything. And a Maverick is already out and stimmed, with the Droleth getting deep enough to see no on-site Ministry, but the maybe it didn't even see the Mason either. Moving across there, definitely a good kill from Ayud to try to make it happen. A couple of Zethar cores are already out. They'll put some damage onto the Hurakan. Down 20 health already. We have 2 pairs of Quas coming as well. And a second Larvosk on the way. Doesn't really look like this Hurakan's going to get too much done. No worker pull necessary. Even heckles him with 1 worker hit. And the Quas are out to finish the job. Not enough damage there from our Hurakan. So, well, Ayud64 will... Get his 1 stockade fast expo, put a tiny bit of pressure, but Krankendau is ready this time. Maybe this map is a bit higher on the rush distance. I don't have an automatic measuring tool for that, so I would actually need to go into the game and check it out, and that's something that I might do later on. Okay, 1 base Hydrith then here, expecting a bit of a containment. I think maybe if Krankendau was able to confirm that it was Ministry, he would know he could just take his own expand, right? But as of right now, he does fear the move out, and if you gamble and say, oh, he's not going to move out and take your hatch, then you might just lose it, right? So that does feel a little bit tricky. I think when you see the anchor, you might feel a little bit more safe. We'll see what Krankendau makes the decision for, because the anchor could also be a bit of a mind game. You don't know what's going on beyond the wall. You know, that's where Krankendau going for an early Ovaleth instead of the Hydrith Den might help. But for timing reasons, you might want to get that Den out so that you can anticipate a more aggressive, like triple, quadruple stockade opener. In this case, we are going up to 3, but it's after the Ministry, right? So Ayud has a worker advantage of just a couple, and Krankendau is actually taking his hatchet. Not a terrible time for what we've seen out of this matchup so far. I think this is faster than he took it in the game that he ended up losing when he went like Mass Zero Core versus the Bio, and then the Bio got on top of him, and it was just way too much Bio. Yeah. That kind of thing. Definitely a possibility there. Well, we'll have to see. Right now it's Hurakan Cyprian. Similar composition, I think, to what we saw out of the game prior. Already some Izira cores. I think if you get like Izira core, Hydra or Lakes are both good options into Bio, because if you go Hydra, you need the Izira cores, right? If you go Lakers, you don't necessarily need them, but the reason why you need the Hydras is so you can kill the Harakans. And the Lakers does that very nicely as well. Lakers being Lurker in Cosmonarchy. The big change between the Lurker and the Lakizalisk is that for the Lakizalisk, the projectile comes back and will damage units a second time if it hits them with both spines. So definitely a powerful unit. You could kind of think of it like, not really a boomerang because there's an arc to that, but like the Crypt Fiend from Warcraft 3 where the projectile returns to the Crypt Fiend. It doesn't actually do any extra damage when it returns or anything, but in the Lake's case it does. So that kind of projectile movement is what I'm talking about. I think it's a pretty cool little shtick that some Zerg units have. The other unit having it is the Skithra Core, a flyer unit from the Ski-backed Scab or Tethvith Swamp, whatever you end up getting. We'll see if we can get a little bit deeper into the game for this round, though. He's making 2 Kagrants. This is a pretty big move out. Only got the Izira cores. He's got 3 more coming. If he had 3 more coming, I would feel a little bit more comfortable for our Zerg player, if he had 3 more already. But as it stands, I think these Kagrants and Circus, they might be a little bit too late. This could end up being a decisive swing in Ayud's favor. Let's see. He's got his 6 Cyprian timings. Pre-stims his 3 Mavericks. That's not too much DPS, actually. The big killers here is the fact that he doesn't have enough Izira cores to jump on top of the Cyprians. But his Circuits finish up. A couple more units coming out as well. Where's the damage to deal with the Harakans? That's the big question mark here. Both Circuits end up getting sniped out. And I feel like this is just too much Terran bio. He's trying to make more Kagrants desperately, but it's not going to happen. Only 6 Izira cores in the production tab. That actually wouldn't be terrible. He could evacuate his Drolets, but he decides to capitulate. I do think that Krankendau could have tried to extend this out by pulling the Drolets as soon as it became obvious the Circuits were dead, because he does have a lot of Izira cores coming. And if he gets on top of all of the bio, which are clumped up together right now, a little bit off screen, hard to see, that would actually be a really big move for our Zerg player. But it doesn't end up happening. A loss on the board once again for Krankendau. And again, I'm not telling you guys who won game 3, but part 2. You guys get it. So we'll keep that in mystery. Is Ayud flawless right now, or has he had his record soiled by a loss? Well, you'll have to find out on the Alex Gaming's channel, but we can go into our next match. Am I seeing double? Is this deja vu? No, this map is Catalyst once again, and our Pumpkin Terran in the bottom left is Ayud 64. Our Mahogany Zerg in the top right is Krankendau. And this is indeed a different game. I know it doesn't quite look like it. I mean, we've even got Ayud moving out with his stockade. Can you believe it? Wait a second. Is this actually a different game? Can you convince me it's a different game? Look, it's all the same things. All right, I have confirmed it is a different game, guys. I promise it's a different game. Larvas Quaz, stockade first in the same spot. I promise you guys, this is a different replay. I've confirmed it. I hope you guys are enjoying Cosmonarchy. I know that there's some balanced discussions to be had about Cosmonarchy. There's definitely been a lot of people who say that, like, oh, Terran is weak because of this, or Protoss is weak because of this, or Zerg is weak because of that, but I'm thinking we're actually in an okay spot right now. I know that might sound like craziness to most people, but I actually don't think so. I think maybe most people agree with me. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Do you agree? Are we in a good spot? Do we need to see some radical change? Spoiler alert, I don't really think there's going to be too much radical change. Now, okay, interesting. Krankendau does pull his worker scout back. He's got his Zeths already. Does he want to try to, like, pocket that scout for later? It's an interesting question mark. Already going to get some damage dealt to that Harakan. We've got yet another Kagrant for yet another Larvosk. Oh, okay, the Quasilisks are already out here. Well, some moving shots were attempted, but that's not really what the Harakan is best at. So that's a dead Ahmed. Anchor on location, Ministry on location. So once again, playing a little bit more conservatively. What does Krankendau change up for this one? He's got his Larvosk. I do think that one of the things that would help him a lot is if he did work in that early Ovaleth to his build order. Especially once he sees this Anchor. I feel like you want to know what's going on. If you count the second game on Apollo and the game we just watched now, before this, Krankendau has lost to that strat twice, where it's just fast expand off of one stockade into like 3-4 stockades being added. Excuse me. That to me feels very important. That's like, wait, what exactly is Krankendau's adaptation going to be? Like, does it go for faster Lakes or ski back? If you scout stockade anchor, I think you make a shroud, honestly, but stockade anchor also If you need to see the Ministry. If the Ministry started and you know it, yeah, that lets you go for either straight into Skibacked, right? Or straight into Zorkis, one of the two. And you do need your Expo. And I think if you can get the confirmation that this is Stockade Ministry somehow early, right? If you do that, then in my opinion, what you're able to accomplish there is just something way, way better than what Krankendau kind of has to do right now, which is hedge his bets that there's going to be some kind of early aggression and then confirm later on. And so he delays his hatch and he delays his production ads and he gets this tech because he needs to desperately hold on for a super early attack, right? Though if you were going to try to do something like that, I'm trying to like read Krankendau's mind a little bit. What does he get that early Hydrath for? What are the early Izira cores help him do, right? And yeah, they will help with early bio move-outs. But is it expected that an early bio move-out would even kill Krankendau? Like earlier than what we've been seeing, where it's around like the 6-minute mark or something? Maybe we'll have an opportunity to find out. We've got workers transferring over in favor of Crank. Worker count is slightly at a Crank's deficit, but he's about to even it up just about now. He'll only be behind by 2 workers, it looks like. Watchdog in the natural. Pretty good bioforce overall. I think the Izira core count is probably a little bit higher this time, or it's probably going to be a little bit higher this time around. He's got his quads patrolling in the main base. And here's the answer, fast ski-backed, not wanting to provide any sort of response. Will it be enough? I mean, the move-out is coming. It's kind of in the same time. This might actually be a little bit earlier. I'm seeing the Cyprian count be 6 in all of these move-outs, and he adds 2 clerics with it. So that's a pretty big factor as well. The anchor is not coming with. A couple of patrolling Zets confirm. So here's the extra Kagrants as well. This is another sort of a adjustment, I would say. 4 Hydras coming. He's only going to have the 1 circuit. I guess he's going to have 2 circuits by the time the push hits. This one in the front is probably going to be focused down pretty early. I like his concave, his unit placement a little bit easier. And look at this. So a lot of the Cyprians are in the back trying to deal with just those couple of units off to the side. They're not adding damage to the circuits that have no armor because of the Hurricanes. So all the Hurricanes go down. And now the fight is completely different. Completely different. Just because the Cyprians and Hurricanes couldn't sync their damage up together. That is a massive difference in the situation. Because now the Zerg is free to just droll up in behalf of that. He already has Bactyl tech that wipes the floor with the Cyprians. Like, there is no hope for the Terran army to really do anything right now. You need a transition point, right? So it's Starpad, it's Covenants, it's, 4 stockades being added to what we already saw? No, 3 stockades being added because he had these 3, plus he had this one. So we're going up to 7 stockades, probably 4 of which are going to end up with Covenants, and we're just going to go mass like Eidolon or Savant add in, one or the other. I guess you could do like a couple Savants into Eidolons. Right now that seems to be what Ayud is going to be doing. He's capping his ridges as well. Going for his Sieves. Or if you're Arbus, his Steves. He's got a Starpad. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I like the adaptation from Crank. I don't think it's the only way to do it. I think you can go Shroud. I don't know how Zergs are going to solve the problem of not being able to scout past the early stockade. That is a problem that they're going to want to try to fix. Because getting an Ovaleth too late will delay it, right? This one gets sniped. He sees the Savants. He knows what he's in for. He also probably saw the Starpad. I'm not 100% sure, because he was getting shot at by Watchdogs earlier, right? Only this one. Maybe, yeah, maybe he saw the Starpad. Okay. But even with that, I think the Bactyls hold this. I think Lakis holds this. Bactyls are probably a little bit more flexible, right? The Lakis is a bit, shall we say... Like, they're both kind of squishy targets, but the Lakis is probably a little bit more easy to play around. Their potential DPS is higher. Okay, so we've got another hatch. No third base yet from our Zerg player. Expanding on location. Vulnerable to Zeth run-bys if he pinched a couple Zeths out of his choke and kind of kept them over here. That would be very nice. He has the minerals, but probably not the larva. Yeah, I think that's probably the main limiting factor for Crank right now, is he's got pretty good income. Now, he's going to try to escort a worker out. He's going to find that he is dealing with the placement of Eidolons, of Savants. He has no detection right now. Is he going to need it, right? We've got a lot of Bactylisks. That's going to be enough to clean house on the front line. And the Anseal is already out of energy, almost dead. But look at how powerful the Savants are being. There needs to be focusing down those targets, or there needs to be a front line to deal with the rest. Now, that was a good salvo in return. Remember that Hydralisks that morph into Bactylisks go back into Hydralisks after the Bactylisk dies. One of the advantages of making the unit from the base unit. Now, here comes an I-0 Core force. I like this, actually. This is really good from Crank. He is going to be able to focus down that Anseal if he hits it with another target. Not going to happen. I feel like maybe his Bactylisk count is a little bit high. Macro slipping here with 1,000 minerals in the bank. Definitely needs to try to get his spending under control. Maybe he literally could just drop 3 more hatches in the main base. We'll see what he does. A Shroud, another hatch. Oh, the Quads are going to see this. There's 3 anti-drop circuits. Still going to get a lot of worker kills because of the Hurakans, which do stand on the units to reveal them. So not really going to be able to avoid the worker demise quite as well as he wants to. The Hydras come back in. That's a situation where, because there were 7 different units in that Trojan, a single Spraith might have helped out, but actually having triple circuit here is really, really nice. That makes that drop way less deadly than it could have been. All right, what else do we got? Just kind of remaxing on the army that he's already had. I think with the higher Bactylisk count, though, Krankendau is going to be able to hold that just fine. Does need to remax his worker count in the main base. And, of course, our Terran player does have the economic tempo of having that third base. I still think that, like, while this is happening, if he can somehow sort in, maybe he gets that first macro hatch a bit earlier, right, in the build, and then he gets those Zeths out that I was talking about, because even 6 Zeths down here kill this Ministry, or force a cancel, right, stop its construction. That manages the Terran player a lot more. Doesn't really threaten too much of a backstab on the military. Like, Protoss, if they pinch off a couple of Drakodins or Zealots and do that in this matchup, they can actually attack the reinforcements. We've seen that all the time in StarCraft 1 as well. Similar kind of vibes. But as Zerg, the most you can do is stop this kind of thing from happening. Force them to start building their ministries on the high ground. And admittedly, that would probably negate a lot. Like, I'm thinking about adaptations the Zerg can make. That doesn't mean that the Terrans can't make any adaptations either. Now getting some Lake this is going to be an opportunity for Krankendau to take and hold territory. As with the Lake they synergize with the Bactylisks in the way that the Bactyls kind of like force respect to be given to a certain area. And then the Lake are like, oh, you're actually going to try to attack into me? I'm going to kite backwards and the Lake are going to finish you off or whatever. Still no expansion over here with this Drolla. That feels like maybe a misclick from Crank. He's going to cap his Geyser in his natural. He's already done so in the main. And he's got a Shroud out, making a lot of Zorius, a lot of Lakes. I think if he gets a third base set up and caps it, he can be in for a very, very nice move. Oh, 8 Savants are incoming, probably to the natural, it looks like. There's still a lot of circuits over here. I think they switched into Power Siphon mode. That could be pretty deadly. We'll see where the rallies end up going for Crank. Only now is he still not actually setting up that expansion. Where does he want to do it? He swapped it out a little bit. Maybe he didn't have the money at the time or something. I don't know. He did have a bunch of Zorius queued up, and those are pretty mineral heavy. There we go. Now it's also going to be a bit of an engagement, which I don't like the placement of Krankendau's forces, but it might draw him into the Lakes. Ayud has to respect those. His Anseals are not providing too much detection for those Lakes. There's not really any follow-up that can be done. Now, the Bactyls are in the backline. A lot of them ended up dying earlier, and the Savants are going to step up in a big, big way here for our Terran player. Only 1 Anseal remains for detection, and the Lakes are they are just mincing this force. Tier 2 just got started for Ayud in the background of this, and there's not too many on the Zerg front. Now, with the Savants raking havoc, oh, man. That is very, very difficult for Krankendau to deal with, because he had a kind of like a victory of just dealing with the fact that there was no detection for the Lakes. That ended up being a pretty significant move there. Unfortunately for him, he's not able to deal with the Drolleths, right? Like, protecting them is a bit of a whiff there. He's going to finish his third base, but look at this. They're coming on in to try to wreak some havoc in the main base as well. The Savants really are agents of chaos. And now with the Eidolons forging down that Hacharosk, a little bit too much, too little, too fast. But I will say, right, that game looked a lot more interesting and compelling from Krankendau. I think his adaptations are looking good. He's going up against our champion from the last tournament, but I really do think that there's things that he's doing that are looking very nice. I mean, Ayud is a bit of a meat grinder. Krankendau even described it the same way. But I'm grateful for him to show us those adaptations and that he's getting closer and deeper into the game, you know? There is a bit of I think it's fair to say, a skill disparity so far, That being said, Zerg plays very differently than Terran does. I'm interested in seeing how Krankendau continues to grow. He's getting his number up there, right? It was 0.5. I guess I missed the 1 arc because now it's 1.5. Let's see 2. Let's see 2.0. That's what I want to see. Maybe we'll see that in our next video. But this is it for now. Stay tuned for our final part of the series where I will reveal Aeud 64 versus Krankendau. What happened in Game 3 if you missed it on Alex Gaming's channel. GG.